Nightfall Blood Country, the new expansion for the Nightfall deck building game. This is basically Nightfall set in the south, Nightfall set in rural areas. This is the underlying theme behind the art and the captions and the cartoons that you have. There's a new theme, but otherwise the game is pretty much what you used to know from the basic set or sets. In fact, there's only one relevant change in terms of mechanics, otherwise the core of Nightfall remains untouched, but you have new characters and new actions and new things that you can add and you can combine so that you can play the game with new factors that are going to be added to the equation. So let's take a look at the set in general, then we'll take a closer look at some of the cards, and finally we'll try to figure out what this expansion contributes to the Nightfall series. The box for the game is very small. Clearly this is the smallest in the series, and I love it because if you are purchasing this expansion, it is because you already have at least one of the previous two sets, so you're probably going to store the cards from this set in one of the other boxes, so why bother with a larger box that you're not going to use anyway. And you find the rule sheet here with a short story, just with a little bit of flavor text. New rules, but basically this is it. The main new thing in this game is that you have new setup rules. Now when you're setting up the game, you first deal cards into the center of the table equal to 8 minus the number of players. These cards are placed face up and form the commons. That means that now, when you are selecting the cards that will form your personal archives, you already know a little bit about the cards that will be available later. You have more control on the choices that you make, meaning you know what the links that will be available later are. So you just have less randomness here and more choices. You can build your strategy more rationally, and I like that. This is definitely an improvement. Then, just it tells you a little bit about the archives. The feed is not really a new mechanic, it was introduced in the previous game. And then you have supplemental FAQ, which is really important because some of these cards left me a little bit uncertain after I read the text. The text was a little ambiguous, but the FAQ really does a good job explaining everything you need to know. And then of course you have the cards that form this set, a lot of new orders, each with a specific and individual divider, and of course then you have the draft cards that you need to select the initial cards. Let's have a look at some of the new cards. A common thread in this game is the fact that some ones can interact in specific ways with certain cards, not just ones in general. For example, Propane Improv. Chain inflict 3 damage on target minion, okay, but the feed is discard a burn wound. It has to be a burn. Burning Meat, guess what, there probably will be a burn wound involved. Draw 2 cards, and that's okay. You may discard a burn wound to destroy target goal. A little situational, but of course it can be useful. Shotgun Party, I love this card, I just love it. Reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. Place any minions into play and discard the rest. And it even has a feed, which is discard a Blade Wound. So this can really allow you to bring in the game a lot of minions at once. It can be really good. I just like it a lot. Flash Frenzy. Look at the illustration. Yuck. Chain inflict 2 damage on target player, and that's okay. Discard a Bite Wound. More specific ones to be used are in the Vampiric Turning card. Destroy target minion. You may discard a Bite Wound to place that minion into play under your control until it is destroyed or discarded. So you can take control of an opponent's card temporarily, not past the end of the turn. Meat Puppet. Inflict damage on target minion equal to its strength. I like cards such as this one that allow you to target powerful minions, and that they are more powerful if the minion that they're targeting is powerful, because they sort of like make it more complicated to use powerful minions well. Otherwise you just have powerful minion goes out and does a lot of damage, but if there are cards that allow you to retaliate against that make a powerful minion attack itself, attack the owner, in any case, to do damage to the owning player, that is good, because of course that means that even when you have powerful minions in your hand, you still have to figure out when it is the right moment to use them so that they do not backfire. Pipe Bomb. Shuffle the bottom 2 ones from the 1 stack into the target archive, and they must be claimed at no cost when possible. So this card pollutes someone's archive, and of course that is an annoying way for the player that gets new ones to get new ones when acquiring cards. Exit Strategy, that features Fat Albert straight from the 70s and the 80s. Exit Strategy. Target order in the chain does not resolve, place it in your discard pile instead. Exile this card. Yeah, pretty powerful, a one-time thing because you have to exile it, but it does allow you to take control of an opponent's card permanently. And let's take a look at some of the minions. You have Casey Bigelow, that comes into play with health equal to the number of cards in your hand, up to 4. We had a game where a player brought him into play when the player had no cards in his hand, so we assume that that means 0 health, so Casey Bigelow just never really materialized. That was funny. Not for the player that did that really, but for everybody else it was. White Trash. I mean, really? Anyways, White Trash. Destroy this card at the end of the next combat phase. Well, why would you do that? Why is that an advantage? It is not. It is not an advantage. It is a limitation to the incredible strength of this guy. Who could tell that this guy can hit so hard? But he does. And that means that actually he only gets to attack if you manage to place him in the chain of the player that goes right before you, so that he will come into play and he will be able to attack before the next combat phase. Well, during the next combat phase, at the end of which he will be destroyed. Maggie Hulk. When in play at the start of your claim phase, you inflict 1 damage on this card to gain 1 influence. That's okay. But Shadowhound. Oh, I like this one. This is pretty powerful. At the start of any phase, you may destroy this card to destroy a target minion. Boom! This guy is a suicide bomber, and used at the right moment, he can really annoy the whatever out of the other players. Damon Montez. Each time this card receives damage, it negates the first point of damage received, so he is much resilient, much more than you could give him credit for just by looking at him. Things just bounce off him. Then you have Harley Doberman, White Trash, Harley Doberman. I know, these puns are debatable. Anyways, when in play, whenever a player places a minion into play, he may discard 1 card. If he does not or cannot, he receives 1 damage. This is supremely annoying. People are going to hate you when you use this guy, because it is such a huge drain on their hands, or in any case they have to take damage. So this is a very effective card. Mach 10. Mach 10 allows you to place orders you claim on top of your deck. Pretty good, especially if you combine it with Shotgun Party, the card that allows you to draw cards and place your minions straight into play. I'm sure that you see the implications of combining the 2 cards, very good. And then Rabbit Rex, a peculiar card, which is in actuality not as powerful as it looks at first, but this card can have very interesting psychological effects on the players. When in chain, the target player receives wounds until he receives a bite or burn one. So you just keep drawing until you get one of these. In actuality, that means that this guy will inflict 1 or 2 wounds in most cases. It is very rare that you go above that. But psychologically speaking, the fact that this guy could inflict a lot of damage with just a lucky series of draws, well, unlucky for the player that is drawing the cards, that has an impact on the overall way in which the players deal with him and perceive him. When he gets into play, players like, oh, again, how do we use cards to stop him so that the chain effect doesn't activate, things like that. So, not a huge impact on the game itself, but quite an impact on the experience of gameplay. If you watch my previous videos, you know that Nightfall is one of my favorite deck building games, but for whatever reason it hadn't hit the table in a while. Now, Nightfall Black Country gave me and my group the motivation to play the game again, and we really enjoyed it. Really had a blast. We really were reminded of all the things that we always liked about Nightfall, the intense interaction that you have among the players, the variety of effects that you can create, little to no downtime because you can always potentially play cards in other players' chains during other players' turns. A certain level of negotiation, a certain aspect of negotiation that you have when there's a player that is sending out minions and everybody's trying to convince that player to attack that player rather than that other one. Do not attack me, I have a lot of wounds, it's useless for you. Attack him, he doesn't have any wounds. What are you talking about? I've been hit all along. People keep hitting me. Why don't they attack you? So there's even a certain aspect of hidden identity game here, which I really enjoyed. Really brings the group together. Doesn't mean that everybody's working together. It gets them to interact intensely with one another. I like that. Blood Country adds to this. Blood Country, of course, enriches this by giving you new minions, new actions, more theme, more ways in which you can get in the way of other players' strategies. This game really is confrontational, and Blood Country is no exception to the trend of confrontational aspects of backstabbing that you have in the previous sets, and I really like this. I like it mechanically and I like it thematically. I think it really fits the theme. This is a war where vampires and undead and werewolves are participating to the fight. It should be a dirty fight. It should be nasty. It should not be a gentleman's fight, and it is not. So that is good. I like the fact that in this expansion you have effects that apply to the wands. The wands have always been an admirable aspect of Nightfall to me. I like how, yes, they keep track of how close you are to winning or losing the game, but at the same time, even if you have a lot of them in your deck, you're not cut off from the game. It's not one of those games where at a certain point you start falling behind and you feel that there's no point for you to even care about what happens next, because here you can still do so much damage when you have many wounds if you use your wound effects well. Now the fact that we have orders that interact with specific types of wounds even emphasizes that, brings that up even more. So I really enjoyed that. This is a game, this is an expansion that to me really works well. It is a very nice addition to the Nightfall series. The characters, the effects, the orders, and even the wounds, the wound effects are really nice new elements. So I really enjoyed. If you enjoyed the previous sets of Nightfall, I think you will really enjoy this one, and you should definitely pick up a copy. If you did not enjoy the previous sets of Nightfall, then I'm not sure what you're doing here, why you're still watching my video, because you should have figured out quite early in this review that this game is not going to change your opinion of the Nightfall series. But if you still did not enjoy the previous Nightfall games and you're watching, well, thank you for bearing with me, thank you for your patience, and I hope that next time I'll be reviewing a game that you can enjoy.